So welcome everyone to the Texas State Transportation Innovation Council meeting for July. My name is Benjamin King. I am the Innovation Section Director for the Strategic Planning Division. And so we'll start off with a welcome. So welcome and start off with a safety moment. So there's lunch boxes. I know we're after 1 o'clock, but if anybody wants lunch, there's still a few items or lunch boxes available. And we'll start off with our safety moment. So it's hot, it's Texas, and it's hot. And so practice heat safety wherever you are. So at the job sites, make sure you stay hydrated and take breaks in the shade as often as possible. Indoors, check up on the elderly, the sick, and those without AC. Vehicles, never leave vehicles or pets unattended. And then look before you lock. Then outdoors, limit strenuous outdoor activities, find shade, and stay hydrated. And this concludes our safety moment for this afternoon. And with that, I'll kind of do a walkthrough, a quick overview of the agenda. So we've done the welcome, we've done the safety briefings. We'll have FHWA provide updates. We'll also have a local aid support team initiatives. We'll also have the STIC incentive project updates. Then we'll take a break. Then we'll have a EDC 5 project update. Then there'll be another section for planning for ITS updates. Mr. Darren Anderson will provide updates overall. And then we'll have a council roundtable just to ask questions from those on the call or those in the audience to see if there's any issues or items that need to be brought up today. And then we'll have closing remarks by Erica Kemp, and then we'll adjourn. So with that, I'll hand it over to Kirk with FHWA.
Thank you, Ben. Today, we're going to hear a little bit about the Center for Accelerating Innovation. Doug Mikowski from the Wyoming Division. He's currently the acting STIC coordinator. He's going to be telling us a little bit about what they're doing, the latest and greatest with the Center for Accelerating Innovation. But just to give you a few comments before we get started, Federal Highway developed the STIC way back in 2012-13 timeframe. And our STIC was formed in 2016, I believe. So it's been about 7 years that we've had the STIC, and we've met throughout that period of 7 years to support new and better ideas to get highways planned, designed, built, and maintained. In April 2012, the Federal Highway established the Center for Accelerating Innovation to help serve as a focal point for internal and external coordination to identify and prioritize innovations. The Everyday Counts program was administered from the center, and it provides strategic innovation deployment throughout the country. Today, we've gone through 7 rounds of EDC. We're on round 7, and we've been working with stakeholders to identify a new collection of proven yet underutilized innovations that can save resources, time, and money for project implementation. The CAI fosters collaboration between stakeholders within the transportation communities through the State Transportation Innovation Council, which is us. And it's a national network, the STIC is, and it brings together public and private transportation stakeholders to evaluate innovations and spearhead their deployment in each state. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Douglas Mikowski, if he's online, if he could please unmute and give us a presentation on the Center for Accelerating Innovation. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Kirk. As Kirk said, my name is Douglas Mikowski, and I'm currently the acting STIC. Let me try and share my screen now. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Fantastic. So Kirk has asked me to give me some current updates for the Center of Accelerating Innovation. CAI has 4 programs currently: State Transportation Innovation Council, which I'm the acting program coordinator in Sarah Lowry's place. She'll return at the end of August. We have the Everyday Counts, and as Kirk mentioned, we're on round 7. We have currently finished the baseline reporting. And then we have AID, which is managed by Fawn Thompson. And then we have AMR, which is currently overseen by the director, Jeffrey Zaharowitz. I have provided a link on this slide, which can provide more information on all our programs. Feel free to explore, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact the program coordinators. For our main updates, for STIC, we are coming to the end, obviously, of FY23 application time frame so that we can get all of the appropriations allocated by September 30th and obligated. But our primary announcement is that the STIC Excellent Award applications are currently under review. We've received a very good batch this year, and we're excited about reviewing them and presenting the winners soon. As I mentioned with EDC 7, baseline reporting is complete and the results are posted. I've also provided a link. The activities this year, we've had a lot of participation. A lot of the states are definitely excited about some of these opportunities, and I hope to work with them more on this. As far as AID goes, now AID has had a little bit of a delay, but we're hoping for announcement soon for that funding. And then AMR, there's currently no updates. Does anybody have any questions?
I can't. All right, thank you, Doug, for that update. Now we'll move on to local aid support team initiatives. And so that'll be Trinette Ballard.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me. So I guess I need to share my slides, correct?
Correct.
Or let me share my screen here. One moment. Am I sharing the screen or is it already here?
We just stop sharing.
Okay. And then I'll share. All right. Okay, I don't need sound. One moment. Let me know when you see it and I will put it in presenter view.
Yeah,
We're looking good.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna cut my camera off if I can. Stop video. Okay. All right, so here we are. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trinette Ballard, and I am a program manager in the Office of Innovation and Workforce Solutions on the local aid support team. I have been with the Federal Highway Administration for 15 years, with 3 of those years working in local aid. So today I'm going to provide an overview of our team, who we are, and what we do. And if you have any questions for me, just drop them in the chat pod. Let me see, next slide. So who are we? We are one of several program offices in Federal Highway. Our office was formerly called the Office of Innovative Program Delivery, and we were the center for local aid support. But then the office was restructured to get rid of the whole center concept. Amy Lucero was our associate administrator, but then she retired. And so now we have Valerie Briggs from the Office of Operations. She is currently serving as our acting associate administrator until the agency can fill the position permanently. But as you can see here, under the Office of Innovation and Workforce Solutions, we have two separate teams. One is the Resource Center that you see to the left, can you hear me? Okay. And so as you see to the left is the Resource Center. To the right is the Office of Innovation, Management, Education, and Partnerships. And under this office is where our team, the Local Aid Support, resides. Also under this group is the Workforce Development Team led by Karen Bobo, the EDC team led by Jeff Zaharowitz, and then the NHI team led by Stacy Caston. So all of us fall under this one team. So there are a lot of us. This is the local aid support. This is an overview of the local aid support team. We are led by Joe Conway. He is our director. Danielle Mathis-Lee is the local technical assistance program manager. So any questions about LTAP will go to her. Morgan Manning is our tribal technical assistance program manager. So everything TTAP goes to her. Hans Anker is our innovation program manager. He's the engineer of the group. And then you have me, the marketing and outreach program manager of the group. And so we have a pretty small team, but we're very busy. We're a very busy team. And as you can see, we build capacity for our local and tribal stakeholders through training, technical assistance, and then we push innovative solutions to the centers, to the local agencies as well. So managing the local and tribal technical assistance program is our #1 main function. We have 51 LTAP centers located at state DOTs or universities in every state and Puerto Rico. There are also 7 regional TTAP centers. And our function as an office is to set direction of the LTAP TTAP program. We provide program oversight. We review the center's work plans. We provide them with annual funding. We actively collaborate with the centers to provide training and technical assistance to the local and tribal agencies. And we provide marketing and outreach support to them as well, because we want them to reach out to as many of the local agencies that reside in their states and in their regions. And sometimes they may not have a budget to do that. And so we're here to assist them with that. So that's how we're set up. Federal regulation requires that FHWA delivers local transportation training and education services. And so we accomplish this through the LTAP TTAP structure. FHWA funding to the LTAP centers require a 50% match, while funding to the TTAP centers require no match. The LTAP centers agreement to deliver training and education services is with the state DOT, with the local aid support team facilitating this. And then the TTAP centers have cooperative agreements that are directly with Federal Highway. And then, as I mentioned, the LTAP TTAP Center's core service areas include training to develop the workforce and expand their expertise, technical assistance to help the locals and tribes solve problems, and then technology transfer is to encourage the use of innovation in transportation programs. So those are our 3 core service areas. This slide is a success slide. This slide is to show you the breadth of work that we're seeing from the LTAP centers. Approximately 36,000 training hours were delivered during fiscal year 22. This is just through the 51 LTAP centers. Approximately 156,000 training participants in those programs, and just over 6,000 training sessions were offered among the LTAP centers. So the LTAP centers are very busy. They're really making a difference in the field. The numbers are just from LTAP because the TTAP had not, is just now getting a reboot. So we'll have data for them in the next year or so as they get started. And the LTAP TTAP program recently celebrated 40 years of service. The centers had celebrations all over the country. Nationally, we held an anniversary webinar. We created a video to commemorate the milestone moment, and we wrote an article that was featured in Public Roads. And this video is available on YouTube, but I did include a link to the video in the presentation itself. So continuing on the path of training, which is a core service area, the local aid support team has partnered with the various organizations you see here on this slide to ensure that local and tribal agencies have anytime, anywhere access to online training. And this training is available to them at no charge. The LTAP TTAP centers can facilitate anyone interested in taking any of these courses. Some of them require a login, and of course we can assist you with that as well. But this training, the partnership is there to provide this training at no cost to the locals who are interested. The local aid support team is also developing and publishing a series of online training that again is available at no cost and accessible via our website. The topics selected for these trainings are based on feedback that we receive from the field as a need. So to develop the trainings, we consult with a series of subject matter experts, which is a large task, but we get it done. And then we also have some new training that's about to come online, and it focuses on the areas of Grants 101, Road Safety 365, and Federal Aid 101 are coming up real soon. So those are in the pipeline for release here pretty soon. The Build a Better Mousetrap program is actually one of our popular programs among the local agencies. This is a national competition that has grown exponentially over the past 3 years. Build a Better Mousetrap recognizes local and tribal agencies who have relied on innovative solutions to save money, save time, and increase efficiency in their transportation programs. In just the past 2 years, we've received 120 nominations across 4 categories, which are innovative projects, pioneer, bold steps, and smart transformation categories. So each year we select 4 winners, and then we produce a booklet that features all of those submissions. And you see the book on this slide here, you see the booklet from 2021, the booklet from 2022, and I am currently producing the booklet for 2023. We actually received 53 nominations for 2023, which is outstanding. And we'll be featuring those in the booklet. And I will tell you how to access the book at the end of this presentation. Every month we hold an Innovation Exchange webinar. This is a peer-to-peer exchange via web where a local agency presents an innovation to their peers. We average about 200 participants per webinar. On this slide, you see some of the innovations we have featured so far this year: ice roads, mini roundabouts, nighttime visibilities, smart intersections. The innovation exchanges are a collaborative effort between the local aid support team and federal lands. And so we have a range of topics that are available in these webinars. Our next innovation exchange is in August, and we're going to be featuring the use of geosynthetic materials in transportation projects. So again, we send the information for these innovation exchanges out via our Gov Delivery subscribers list. And so I'll tell you how to access that as well. And so here's another way you can find out about all of these wonderful activities happening with the LTAP TTAP program and with the local aid support team. We have a quarterly newsletter that goes out, and I have a QR code where you can sign up for it at the end of this presentation. But in the newsletter, we provide, you know, an overview of some of the local innovations that we receive. We provide information on training, all of this free training that I've been talking about. We provide information on that in our newsletter. We also provide information on upcoming grants and things like that that may be specific to the locals. And so this goes out quarterly. We have a subscribers list of about 100,000 subscribers. So it gets pretty heavily distributed. And we're always looking for stories to include in this newsletter. And then once again, if you sign up for our announcements via GovDelivery, you'll also get access to the reports that I referred to earlier. The Build a Better Mousetrap booklet, as the 2023 book is released, I always send that out to everyone with a link to it from our website. We also, for the first time this year, we produced a performance assessment report that talks about all of the great things that happened among the LTAP centers in the previous fiscal year. So those training numbers you saw earlier are available in this book. We handed out the book last week during the NLTAPA conference, but I am going to have some more books printed, and it's also going to be available via website. And once we get, I've been on a lot of travel. So once I can get settled back into the office, I can get the book uploaded to our website. And so one more note before I end this presentation is that I invite all of you to download our newest innovation, Compliments of the Local Aid Support Team. We teamed up with the Geosynthetic Materials Association to create a mobile application for use by project managers of road construction and maintenance projects. The mobile app means useful information at your fingertips on how to apply geosynthetic materials to your programs. The app features information on the different types and function of geosynthetic materials. It also features the ability to document and mail notes, bookmark information, and then it has a search function using keywords. The app is available via the Apple Store and Google Play Store. And actually today I'm making this presentation from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I'm at the TRB Low Volume Roads Conference, where I'll be conducting a workshop on the mobile app actually tomorrow afternoon. So I invite everyone to download the app, check it out, and pass it along to others who may be able to benefit from its use. We already have almost 1,700 downloads of the app, and a lot of them are actually using the mobile app. And so again, stay connected with the local aid support team. If you select here, you can sign up for all of our announcements and information. We're putting out announcements at least twice a month, but we try not to send out too many because I know how that can be. If you want to read up on some of our previous issues of our newsletters, I've included the link in this presentation as well. And always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be able to assist you with anything you may need assistance with. And so thanks again for having me today. This concludes my presentation.
All righty, thank you, Tonette.
You're welcome.
All right. So next on the agenda, we have the STIC incentive project updates. And that'll be Mr. Ray Belk. So Ray, if you're on the line, you can. He's here. Okay, not on the line. He's actually here in person. Great.
I just live up Bell County, so it's easy for me to come down.
Well, we'll hand it right over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. King, appreciate it. My name is Ray Belk. I am retired tax dot, proud of that. Been with the center for 5 years now, the LTAP Center, and doing good works, hopefully for the folks in the cities and counties. What this is, project is all about, the STIC project, is tied into the LTAP program that Ms. Ballard was just talking about. I'll just advance myself here, I guess, by doing enter, or is there a clicker?
No, like you hit the arrow.
Hit the arrows, okay. Okay, we named this particular project the 5-stage employee attraction and retention model. We did a STIC project 2 years ago that was funded, and what that project did was it put a bunch of job descriptions out there that the cities and counties simply did not have. In doing some follow-up with cities and counties, we also asked them, what else do y'all need? And one of the big things was our workforce. We have high attrition factors. We can't attract quality people. And once we get them, we're having trouble keeping them. And just not for money, but lots of other reasons as well. So I was a member of the ED6 Strategic Highway Innovation, and had the pleasure of working with Joe Conway and Karen Bobo that Ms. Ballard just spoke about. And what we have done is taken information from that particular ED6 project and brought it to a very local level to the cities and counties in the state of Texas. That particular project was focused at the national level to attract highway construction workers. So now we brought it down to cities and counties. So let's take a look at what it was all about. And I'm not going to talk about every slide up here because a lot of my slides, folks, are extracts from the guide, okay, that's in the back. We've got hard copies and it'll be on our website very soon as well. I engaged a series of human resource officers across the state of Texas working for cities and counties and some compensation specialists, classification specialists, et cetera, et cetera. This is the team, very representative to get what's going on. What do you need as well? The 5-stage model is this. Get them in the door. Okay, we need to attract them, recruit them. Secondly, we need to onboard them correctly. Okay, we just can't say go work. This must be on a timer because I'm not touching it. It's on a timer. If you can take that off. The third thing is training and development, T&D. The fourth is engagement and evaluation. Then fifth, succession planning. How we can use those folks to actually bring the other ones up. So we're going to talk a little bit about those. The model, when I built it, is scalable. In other words, some of my counties that I work with, they go, hey, you know what? Yeah, we need to train and we need to evaluate, but we don't have the time to do succession planning. We don't have the time to do an extensive onboarding. Fine. Use those 2 segments of the model. Use one segment of the model. Use them all. It just depends. So it's scalable. The draft guide, and the reason I say draft, we've put out about 600 copies of this so far, okay? It needs a little bit of tweaking because there's been some excellent things that have come back from the cities and counties to say, this is what we'd like to see in there, okay? So there'll be just some minor revisions and we'll get it out there on the web. But there's a lot of resources that are taken from the ED6 and then also what folks have chimed in and said we need. In the guide, there are a lot of things about facts, okay? And here we go, it's doing it to me. Myths and realities, and what we call FAQs. Because when I work with commissioners, remember, we got over 1,000 of them. I get a wide range of, well, I don't want to do that because. I do want to do that because, and then a lot in the middle. They don't really know what they need sometimes, and they're looking for solutions. So we try to bring those realities to the front. And I'll show you some of those things here in a minute on one of the slides that I'm talking about. And so these are the extracts out here. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about them individually, but some facts, realities. These are actual hard copies and things like that. What assistance can I get? And it comes from the LTAP program. So the first thing is recruiting. It would amaze you at the lack of recruiting that happens in road and bridge and public works environments across the state of Texas, the problems they run up against. They simply don't know how to do it a lot of times. Literally, the recruiting sometimes is a job notice put on a bulletin board in the hallway at the county courthouse, and that's it. Nothing else. Well, if you're trying to hire a diverse workforce and get the word out, those commissioners are starting to understand that doesn't work by itself. Here's tools and resources that you can use and apply to expand that audience that you're trying to bring in. So these are the things that I talked to them about that you can do as part of your recruiting. What I call leveling the playing field. Tell your story is what it's all about. Hey, we offer medical insurance, we have benefits, we provide this, that, and the other. And it engages them to start thinking about what can I really do, to get folks to think about. Also, I talk about, and we talked about it a long time ago at TxSTIC, what we call the 13th check. It's the unrealized check. James is nodding his head. He remembers this, okay? The value that they get that they never see, the vacation, the benefits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Start talking about that at the city county level as far as your recruiting process that's out there. We give them all kinds of ideas of recruiting strategies, and the whole thing is just to get them to start thinking. Job postings. We give them some templates to work with. This is what your job posting should look like. Now, I like using this one right here. And let me show that to you, if you can read it. And I blanked out to protect the guilty. What county? These are actual job postings by counties. Is accepting applications, you got to have a CDL. So I don't have to drive. I don't have to show up for work. I don't have to be here 40 hours a week. I don't have to live material. That's it. So I think y'all see the problem here. Okay. The next one is not a whole lot better. The issues here is you got to go to the judge's office to get an application. No online applications, no mail-in applications. Nobody will take a phone call or anything like that. So I talked with them, very politely and professionally, that you're shooting yourself in the foot with your current practices. And once it's pointed out to them, a lot of times they understand. Onboarding. At TxSTIC, we had a very aggressive onboarding program. Some people call it shadowing. Some people call it a partner, a buddy, things like that. A lot of counties is, okay, you've done your paperwork with hopefully an HR person. Now go to work. And they throw them to the sharks, and either they swim and survive or they go down in flames. And then they'll go back into that cycle again of having to rehire. So we laid out an aggressive onboarding program that they can scale down. It is up to 6 months, but it can be scaled down to as little as a month. So somebody's showing that you hire the ropes, they don't get disenfranchised and leave immediately or anything like that. So we give some statistics about doing effective onboarding also that comes out there that are industry-based. That's not something we made up or anything like that. So the third phase, stage 3, is training and development. And those of you who know me, that's a passion for me, okay? Being former workforce director for TxSTIC, really enjoyed it and love doing it for the cities and counties and developing things for them out there as well. They understand our program that we have at LTAP. We have between 40 and 50 counties now that are using a customized approach. It's a 4-year program for the road and bridge and public works folks. Our big clients are City of Houston, City of Dallas, City of Fort Worth, Bexar County, Dallas County, Tarrant County, even down to small counties that have only 10 or 15 employees in their workforce for roads and everything in between. They see the value of how it works out to have a structured program, and we're leveraging that information again with this program and putting it out there. We keep accentuating the guide that we do free training as part of the LTAP, and we also accentuate, and you saw this from Ms. Ballard's, that we also, if you notice there, the AASHTO TC3 online training. We always point them toward those things because we have a lot of clients that like to use that online training as well. Also, TxSTIC does offer a lot of its training to the city, county employees, and we make that aware to them. Not all of it's there, but many of the courses are, and we want them to know about that. So we leverage everything back also to the program, like I said, that we did in 21. Added some new information in there for them. Hey, these are OSHA-based standards where you should be training your employees. Because I often ask, what training do you give them the first week? Well, we take the newest guy, we give him a flag, and we tell him to stand there and wave at people. Okay, there's a little bit more to it than that, all right? We don't want the newest guy who doesn't know anything putting my life in his hands, okay? He should know some other things. So we give them information about OSHA-based training that we provide also, you know, for no cost to them, et cetera, et cetera. This should be applicable all the way through. Engagement and evaluation, continuous engagement. Okay, we brought them in, we've onboarded them, we continue to train them. What else? How do we keep them engaged? And that's step 4. The biggest thing is professional development, just not pure training, but how do we talk to them? How do we get that person to talk to other folks in the workplace, et cetera, et cetera. And also the evaluation process. From a poll that I did of the 254 counties, less than 20 had a formal evaluation process for its road and bridge or public works employees. It will surprise you those who do and those who do not. We are in the process of getting ready to roll out a new course under this program, how to develop plans and then close out the process. It's very interactive. It has scenario-based things that they will build in evaluation form. And a lot of times they say, we don't know how to start. And that's what the class is designed to do, is to help them start and how to be able to do that. Already got a waiting list about this long, single-spaced 8-point font of people, yeah, that want to take that particular class in the cities and counties. They're saying, we need that, please come help us. So we talk about employee engagement. We give them lots of things, plans, mentoring, coaching, et cetera, et cetera. These are some of the sample objectives. You'll see it on the slide on the new class that's coming out, the LTP 405. We talk about, you know, the coaching, counseling, mentoring, the difference between succession planning. When I talk to commissioners, a lot of times their eyes roll back in their heads sometimes, because you got to remember, a lot of these guys did not come up in a business environment, or if they did, it was a sole proprietor environment a lot of times. You know, they ran a feed store, they still do, they're still a county commissioner. And they now are in charge of X number of miles of road. They have a road crew, and they're like, well, if Joe retires, he's my lead maintainer guy. What do I do to replace him? Well, you need to start talking about and thinking about it now, not in 3 years when Joe retires. So we talk about how to bring those folks that are in the ranks up and do things with them, and to use Joe to leverage his skill and experience to bring it forward. So we got all those things in succession planning, and we lay it out how it all should work, and et cetera. So in a recap, that's it. Do I have questions?
How's the response been?
Wonderful. I did a kickoff presentation at the B.G. Young Institute of County Government. We had 300 new commissioners at that particular one. I did a 1-hour presentation going through everything. I had about 50 of them lined up when I got finished, giving me business cards saying, come see me.
I would say, so they ask you to follow up.
Yes, sir. And we're in the process of doing those things now. It's kind of slow going out to the cities and counties in the summertime, because their primary focus, just like TxSTIC, is get the roads taken care of, you know, while the weather's exceedingly hot. Yes.
Ray, could you tell us about the next stage, or, you know, the next phase of this project? I mean, we have the TxSTIC Incentive Award for 22 that was just recently awarded to the LTAP, and just want to see what are your
Next phase is get more of this out there. Okay. We don't have a third stick project. Okay. This is number 2 is what this is. And so what number 3 could be is going to depend on what comes out of the counties again, because they're always thinking about, and they don't hesitate to tell you, this is what I need. And we listen, we take that information in, just not under the stick projects, but anytime our instructors go to the field and teach a class, they're always bringing information back to the LTAP management of, this is what the counties are saying they need at that particular point in time. Yes, sir.
So in terms of training, so I come from a district, from Bryan District. One of the things that every district is struggling with is we've got a funding category with safety improvements
Mhm.
and engaging with stakeholders that are considered off system, like working with cities, for their off streets, also with counties for their off system county roads. Is there anything in terms of that training, or is that even on the radar? If there's funding that's out there that's available to do safety improvements from that standpoint, is that being discussed in all this, or really focused more?
Yes. When I go to visit with the county, and as a matter of fact, I have a visit in 3 weeks with Brazos County. Okay, Jennifer Salazar, the HRO there, and their entire leadership about implementing this 5-stage model. We always talk about just not a particular thing, but everything else that comes with it. The local aid, the free training that goes out there, because at the local level, say Brazos County, we do all the heavy equipment training for the counties that's identical to what your TxSTIC employees get, the guys in your maintenance sections. It's the exact same training. How to run a maintainer, whatever the piece of equipment is, asphalt distributor, AMUs, on and on and on. So, and the safety components that go to it also. We put the information out there, but trying to get those counties sometimes to latch on and actually go through and do it is very difficult. Simply because A, they've never done it, B, they don't know how to do it, C, they don't have the resources. So it would be helpful if we could get a resource out to those counties about how to actually write those grants. And I think that'd be a great thing for the districts. Other questions?
One more.
Yes, ma'am.
How many people do you have working with you to do that? Sounds like a big.
I'm a one-man show, but I'm a hurricane. I pace myself. It's like if I go to Panhandle, I don't go for one county. I'll hit 5 counties in a week.
Right.
Some of my meetings I do by teams, and then it's a follow-up meeting face to face. I do lots of presentations at county commissioners courts and at city councils as well. And we blanket through the LTAP program, all the Texas Association of County Conferences to Sarah, West Texas, NACE, you name it, we're engaged. APD, APWA, TML, the whole nine.
There's a question on mine from Michael.
Okay, I can't see questions.
Any prediction on when the final draft will be available?
Within 60 days. Yeah.
We have another question.
Yeah, because it's at 98% right now. It's his final tweaks is all it is.
He says, thank you.
Okay. And then how soon we can get it to the website depends on some internal things.
We have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Scott Smith.
And the question is, I can't see it here.
He's unmuted.
Yeah,
I had a question regarding, has anybody thought about incentivizing the return to work retirees by getting the legislature to change the rules about their leave earning, having to start over from square one and continuing their longevity pay? That seems to me to be a real untapped resource that could aid in, this succession planning and everything else.
From our level, we don't get politically involved. Just to be honest with you, but we do approach it in a different way. How we do approach it is we love hiring retired TxDOT employees and engineers, okay, all the time, as many times as we can. Been there, done it. And it's a great model that they love to follow out there. We've hired several retired city and county engineers or, road and bridge administrators as well. So we're always looking for those opportunities. So if you know somebody's looking for a great semi-retirement job, send them to us, okay? Carrie, Cassandra, Charnette. That's how they hooked me 5 years ago. Thank you for the question. Anything else? Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belk. And with that, we'll take a 10-minute potty break. So we'll see you. Let's call it 1:55. We'll start back up. Thank you.
So I'm the idea. You're still required.
You don't.
Actually, they don't remember. Way back when we first got it.
That's not part of
We had Well, 10 years it's And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to be precise on it. Let's say Vision gave, let's say $20 million. Funding. Then we're gonna do yeah, I need to.
That's why I, that's why
All righty, I think our break time is over. 10 minutes is up. It is now 1:55. We'll start off with our next presenter. Mr. Kenneth Perrine will be speaking today on weather responsive management strategies. And so with that. We'll go ahead and get started with Mr. Kenneth Perrine on weather responsive management strategies. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today, and it's wonderful to be back. You've heard a lot about this weather project over the years. It was actually an EDC 5 project, but we had to have the right conditions at the right time and the right equipment, and here we are, and we finally are at our closeout. This project was a very interesting project. It really started off as an exploration of weather responsive management strategies. A very broad sort of topic that can include how to use data, what kinds of sensing technologies are that can be out on the roadway that can help with operations, and also what to do with equipping vehicles so that they can track winter operations on the road. And when we worked with the districts that had wanted to participate with the project, we talked about goals and items that we wanted to bring to the table. And two themes kept on coming back, and that was being able to track winter operations without having to require too much intervention from the operators, and also figuring out what to do with the data that comes from the roadways. So it's very important in tracking winter operations to not require operators to worry about that tracking, because they're busy treating roadways. They don't want to think about anything else. And if they do think about something else, then there's going to be details that will be missed. So it was very important to keep that as passive as possible. And then in dealing with the data, we want the data to be able to come in a place that could be recalled on a historical basis. We'd like it to be in a place that could be live. And that's why it was very interesting to be teaming up with the TxSTIC group, especially the GIS folks, who are dealing with the ArcGIS enterprise system, geo events, and data sources that come through a large pipeline that could be presented to any number of dashboards and applications. And I realized that there had been a few complications in terms of the data pathway being clear this last winter season, and those glitches are being ironed out as we speak and made bigger and better. We partnered with Abilene and Lubbock districts to equip a total of 6 vehicles, winter operations vehicles. 3 of those were V-Box spreaders that had plows attached with them in Abilene. 2 of them were the same in Lubbock. We also had 1 brine sprayer vehicle. We utilized the Verizon Connect fleet management tracking system that was on all the TxDOT fleet vehicles up until last year, where TxDOT had switched the contract over to GeoTab and necessitated being able to adapt our system to the GeoTab fleet management system. And we found that the geotab system was a bit more sophisticated than what Verizon had offered and actually solved a lot of our problems in terms of being able to have precise data come from the roadway. So we were very happy about that and very thankful that we had the opportunity through an amendment to extend the project so we could fully leverage the geotab system and understand what it could do for us. The project team was pretty expansive. We had a number of folks at UT, a couple of faculty advisors, a number of grad students that were supported through the project. Our PMs were Wade Odell, who we're very thankful to have worked with, and also Darren Jensen, who stepped in at the last moment when Wade had retired. And then we had a rather great group of folks in the PMC, Charles Tapp, Daniel Richardson, who is up in the Abilene district, and a few others, Josh Morton in El Paso with the FOD. And then folks within the ITD division who we're working with even now to figure out how we can transport that technology that we had developed and integrate it into the ArcGIS enterprise system that they're operating. And then a number of stakeholders who worked within the maintenance facilities that we worked with to find out how to equip each truck with the sensing capabilities. Outcomes of the project were that we did track snowplow, spreader, and brine spraying activity among those 6 vehicles. One of those vehicles was actually out in the shop during the whole season, so unfortunately we weren't able to get activity off the brine sprayer, but we did successfully road test it, and we know that would be able to work out in the field. And we also demonstrated ways of being able to access and utilize the data. We didn't quite get to the ability of fully integrating with Texera because the staff were quite involved with ironing out some complications that they had during the winter season, but we are speaking with them today about paths forward. We also conducted a few special studies in data. We were able to show how we could replace handwritten logs. And that's actually a really important job because those handwritten logs are meant to be written by the operators of vehicles, but they're also meant to be written after the fact, not while on the road, meaning that we did find that there were a number of inaccuracies that could be greatly improved by automation. And we also were able to directly visualize data from the sensors and show how there are certain trends in treatment activity, as well as just basically showing where the coverage is in the district. And also we explored a couple roadway freezing models to figure out how could we pair those with the prediction of freezing. We conducted 2 workshops and 1 demo event. The most recent being the Abilene District 2023 workshop. We did this in person at the district headquarters. We talked about hardware, GIS, data applications, how data could be fed into the GIS system, how data could be analyzed separately, like in an Excel spreadsheet, talked about ways of visualizing the data, and had some brainstorming session about the needs of the district on how to branch out capabilities brought forth by the project. We actually have a couple PowerPoints available. They're not formally approved yet by RTI, but just email me and I can get them to you if you're interested. We are writing our final report, which I'll talk about in just a moment, and that's to be approved and in the final stages. Oops, wrong way. One of the most important deliverables we have with the project too is an installation checklist, along with chapters in the report that tell how to do it. And this checklist is pretty neat because we can just give it to a district and say, these are the steps to add winter operation sensing capabilities to your winter vehicles. And suddenly, once these are installed, all the sensing will be passive and just show up inside the IT backend. And the neat thing too is that we're talking no more than $240 worth of equipment per truck. If it's a truck that doesn't have a full gamut of sensing capability or treatment capabilities, then that cost is less. The bigger job is actually visiting each truck individually and seeing how to equip the truck, as each truck is unique. Now, there are some trends that are being trying to be championed by FOD to find commonalities of especially new trucks. And we learned with each truck, and we found that as maintenance personnel became more and more familiar with each truck or each vintage of truck, it was easier and easier to be able to retrofit them with the sensing capabilities. We also analyzed a few different types of sensing capabilities on roadway. The most interesting ones were the weather stations. That's the Onset HoboLink RX3000, basically a prosumer sort of weather station that had all kinds of different gadgets. It was great to be able to deploy them out into maintenance sections and whatnot and have a finer resolution than what could be given just with the National Weather Service and West Texas Mesonet weather stations. We also looked at roadway condition sensing technologies, including a mobile eyesight that was mounted on a vehicle and also an eyesight that was mounted on the 11th Street Bridge in downtown Austin. They were all interested in seeing what kinds of capabilities there were to see what the condition of the roadway was without actually having to drive out there. And our final report has these different topics: an introduction of weather responsive management strategies, a really detailed exploration about our pilot, including a step-by-step guide, and also explorations on what can be done with the data. And we're excited to be able to have this report out in the wild and look forward to responses to that. Where next? Well, we had our pilot. There's successes in that. We're now wanting to see what's next for implementation. And we think that we can really bring this to other districts, especially those that get hit with winter every year. It's hard to think about winter right now when we're in the boiling heat, but those northern districts really get a lot of winter and a lot of icing, and it's very important. And those districts are not equipped like those northern states that have multi-million-dollar budgets for 70 or so maintenance vehicles per county and so forth. This is more of a smaller operation, but yet very, very important to operate efficiently. And we also found ways of applying this beyond winter operations, such as roadway herbicide treatment. So we're very thankful for the support that the STIC and EDC5 had given for kicking this off. We have momentum. We'd like to see where we go next. So with that, you have any questions? Yes.
So question I have, I guess concerning the Verizon to GeoTab.
Yes.
What allowed that opportunity to make that switch?
Yes. So each of those vendors had ways of feeding in arbitrary sensor data. It's basically a cable harness that goes right into their box, and you then connect your sensors to it. But they have different ways of having the protocol of sending the data to those general purpose inputs. The GeoTab system automatically detects that sensing protocol and doesn't require configuration on the back end. There was also some nuances about how quickly the updates happen. So the Verizon system was precise up to about a 10-second mark. So if somebody flicked on and off a spreader, for example, in an intersection, and it happened quicker than 10 seconds, we were pretty much out of luck because oftentimes the Verizon system didn't capture that event. Whereas the GeoTab system is down to the sub-second accuracy. And we were very pleased when we did our road tests and find, oh my goodness, it's capturing everything. Even if the operator just flicks the switch very quickly, it captures it. So it's able to really tell us then what's happening out on the roadway. Yes.
So my question was, you said y'all are working on the final report. Have you already done value research?
Yes.
Okay, so I saw you had the per truck, but did y'all do like an estimate of how much that could save? Maybe TxSTIC and then, or maybe project other states being, using more.
Right.
Perhaps they would have more savings just to show the overall value of it.
Yes. So as you know, value of research are a very expert estimate on what could be the reality. And the way we went about it was through safety and accident reduction, just saying if a DOT were able to assess where they may have missed spots on the road where there could be an accident, then how much could that save? One thing that would have been very interesting to do, maybe we can go back and do it if there's a lot of interest, is compare the budgets that some of those northern states have for some of the contracts they run with some vendors that have to be renewed every year, both for sensing technologies, but also the technologies that's on the vehicles and the software that's run. Compare that against what we can do with what TxSTIC has already acquired on an ongoing basis, especially with ArcGIS and the GeoTab, which is an ongoing system that's already installed. With these capabilities that TxSTIC owns, there's nothing proprietary about them. There's nothing special. How much cost savings can there be? I think that'd be very interesting, and I think would bring us up into many thousands. Yes.
So a couple things, and the former director of maintenance, that's this could be very helpful. Because when you go through your winter weather plan, you're looking at your rates and meanwhile, you have to optimize your resources. You're typically your resource people, you're in shift work.
Yes.
And so if you can optimize the amount of spare yards you can do with one shift, that's a really big value. And so this is actually a way to map that.
Mhm.
And it's kind of the main one of those, that's where the optimization or some other value to be at. Secondly, there's a political aspect of it. So always going to get county judge will claim that you didn't treat a bridge. And so inevitably, whether it's a geotag or the FNF, this is work that will be treated anyway, putting those guys on the way.
Yes.
Just to cover the political request. Be successful, we're able to get that fed into the ocean, and we're actually able to design our own routes to get that FNF to kind of address those requests and show graphically and send those graphics to the county judge if we were there at this time. I could tell them the rate and the person who did it. So if you could tie this into the OCHI where all of our operations occur, and we could do that in the system, you can actually start logging in real time. You talked about, because they have a DOJ application that they can make notes that they need to address it. So that could be one.
Yes.
It's better if we have a subject matter expert, whether you know it or not, in the office, Dr. Ferguson, who's in charge of all the winter operations in Pennsylvania for years, and managed the 750. We'll volunteer my boss to be longer.
Thanks, Mike. As far as that third point about resources that we can get expertise here in Austin, I'll definitely follow up with you on that because I'd love an introduction. But yeah, I wanted to mention too, Mike, the second point that you bring up, I'll repeat just a tad bit of it for those who are online. It's basically the idea of being able to prove that the DOT had actually treated it a part of roadway, especially when somebody is complaining that they did not. And Abilene brought up that same concern. They also said even for herbicide spraying, they might be blamed for spreading herbicide along a field where a farmer didn't want it to be spread and is blaming the DOT for failed crops. So being able to automatically document this and pair it up with records of who was driving at the particular time, that's definitely very straightforward. You just need the data, you need those timestamps, and that's what this gives them.
And then district administration, the best indicator of road condition is soil.
Yes.
Everybody is talking about that. So you come at it and you have Facebook and stuff up, like, what are you doing? What diversity going on there? They're all telling me 620 bad.
And then pictures,
So the
data,
pictures
all
and
sorts of
people-
real-time data.
Thank you. Yes.
So I know what your initial effort was in reference to doing, was any aspect of that in the report talked about? One thing I was thinking was going to come out is, I remember when this originally was being proposed a while ago, I thought it was neat. Was there an effort to look at trying to get the climate, the environmental data harnessed and put out into weather models from that standpoint? The amount of state vehicles, I know what amount of state vehicles we have, but not with the level of information that's available through this system and its purposes. But was any of that investigated to see if that's some way to actually be able to look at all, when we deploy staff daily during these weather conditions, they may not be, as you know, they may be driving a pickup truck, gathering that type of weather data, model, using that to bolster those models to try and do predictive analysis on what next road we may need to go and spray or something to that effect. Any of that information, or even talk about smack out of the middle of summer hotspots type of thing.
Right. So be able to collect data off of vehicles and use them in modeling efforts.
Yeah.
Yes, we were very motivated by that, especially as the mobile eyesight detector that's on a vehicle. So for every time step, which is like once a second, it is able to say what the roadway temperature is, what the ambient temperature is, what the roadway icing condition is, if it's slushy, if it's solid. Unfortunately, and this is a very interesting finding of the project, but for better or for worse, the vendor didn't have a way of being able to automatically access that data. If we wanted to automatically access it, we needed to enter into like a $6 million contract or something that was very, very, I mean, a northern state might be able to do it, but this is really out of the range for what TxSTIC would want to do. So this really brings me to the idea that what we have right now on the vehicles doesn't have temperature measurement capability, but it could in the future. And especially when it comes to our study, and I didn't get into this, but we did spend some time studying roadway freezing models. And the roadway freezing models really need a lot of data. And what's better than to have very localized data where these probe vehicles have actually run and to be able to visualize it too, to boot, even if we don't run it through analysis. Yes, this is all things that we didn't get very, very deep into, but we did see, yes, we need to get further into it if we want to go in better directions of having better pervasive data. Any other questions? Well, I thank you all again.
Thank you, Kenneth. Next, we have planning for ITS growth, and we have Mr. Jeff Biles from the Bryan District, TxSTIC.
Assuming the other presentation's up. Or is it in that one?
It was in that one.
Oh, I did not understand that. I apologize. Let's go back to that. Thought you're number one. Good. And let's go back to. There we go. Okay. So I'm from Texas A&M, so I'm going to start with howdy. So from the Bryan District, I'm trying to give today, I'm going to give a district perspective on how we're looking at implementing ITS technology related items in our district. So as we plan for ITS growth in our district, you know, one of the things we were looking at is the technology itself, where to implement it, and what it comes down to for our district when we look at it is we want something that achieves the goals of the various stakeholders at, I hesitate to say minimal cost. One of the things we have to think about in terms of our district is where are we getting the biggest bang for our buck in terms of improving both safety and operations. And so I'm going to walk through that, thinking about it from the perspective of all of our stakeholders. And so I'm going to kind of walk through a who, what, when, and why. So when we look at the goal, right, one of the things that always comes down to is you can start with, hey, this is what our goal is. But then we have to kind of take a pause and we have to think about who is our stakeholder, right? Is it the pedestrian on the side of the road? Is it the local commuter? Is it the commerce that's going through our streets? So we have to think about those different things which can lead into. So we need to think about the stakeholders. And then depending on what stakeholder we're looking at, then we have to, from that, we can transition to say, well, what do we think we need to do? And then as we think about what we need to do, we think about, why should we do it and when should we do it? So here's some various stakeholders that I kind of pulled together. We're sitting there just kind of brainstorming. You know, you've got your worker, you've got commerce, you've got children going to school or children going to play, you know, the vacationer passing through, right? Texas, you know, I've lived in Texas most of my life and vacation a lot in Texas, but we do a lot of driving. And so we get to a number of different places. And so trying to think about all those different stakeholders Often, so I came from operations in my background. And so one of the things that I'll talk to staff about is whenever we think about your stakeholder traveling through your network that you're working on, whether it be the pedestrian or whether it be the vehicular traffic going through, is that you need to think about, well, are they local? Are they non-local? Are they passing through? Or are they coming to a destination? So all those things need to be considered. And then obviously there's other in there, you know, and one of the things I talk about too is what's their story? What's the reason? What do they want to do? Right? Depending on what that is, can impact stuff. A lot of it, if you look at the, you know, answers up there, it's to arrive safely, but sometimes it's about, especially when we're talking about commerce, not only safely, but that it needs to be reliable, right? If you're talking about a Walmart or you're talking about any of the number of different goods, right? When you sit there and you click your Amazon purchase and it says it's going to be on there Monday and it comes in on Tuesday, you're not happy, right? So the system needs to be reliable, and those are the things we're looking at. And then I've got government on there. So my focus in reference to this, you know, there's the various different stakeholders, and we try and think about those various different stakeholders. But today, my discussion is really more so focused on TxSTIC, in particular Bryan District. So what do we do, right? We plan, we build, and building is, you know, normally when we've thought about it, it's we're building those lane miles. But, you know, now we know that we can't continue to just build and go from a 6-lane to an 8-lane to a 12-lane. Someone did the math, and I think they said I-10, when you include the frontage roads, might be a 20-lane cross-section. I haven't verified that, but I wouldn't be surprised. But so you can add lane miles, but at some point, you know, what can you do with the existing system? That's where the ITS comes in. And then, you know, whatever system you design, whether it's related to the lane miles or whether it's related to the technology, you have to be able to maintain it. So I've got the funny acronym TSMO for those who aren't familiar with it. Transportation. I'm going to mess that one up. Yes, thank you. Systems management. I always want to say strategies. It's not. So systems management and operations. And thank you very much for the save. So when you look at it, TSMO allows you to monitor it. It allows you to adapt, and allows you to relay information. And so when we sit there and think about the technologies that go into that, right? We have the equipment. Typically, what it relates to, you have dynamic message signs, the DMSs, you got your cameras, and then you've got various other types of sensors. I consider cameras sensor, but a lot of those sensors, it could be measuring speed and detection for like runaway traffic and overheight and crash. We've recently added overheight detection in our district as one of them. We haven't done runway yet, but and again, then you've got the option in terms of looking at crashes. A lot of the metros will sit there and try and fine tune their TMCs. I know they worked on some algorithms in reference to looking at camera technology to detect crashes in advance and allow their TMCs to operate more efficiently, right? The quicker they can clear the crash, the quicker that they can get reduce the congestion and also reduce the likelihood of secondary crashes. So what's the why, right? We talked about the goal, you know, goals, the what we've talked. So why are we looking at doing it? We want to improve the system. We want in terms of safety, reliability. Those things will help us with reducing the congestion, the emissions, and cost. Now, at the end of that, when we sit there and think about it, so when do we do it? So often, a lot of times, you know, we talked about. I mentioned money earlier. You know, benefit to cost ratio. Well, that's pretty complicated. It seems pretty simple and straightforward. You know, do a BC ratio of 1 or greater. Okay, well, all that goes into, well, what are we considering the benefit? What are we considering the cost, right? And so it's a lot more complicated than that, but I wanted to put that up there. And because, for instance, reliability. Right? Let's say the product costs $2,000, but it's not very reliable. So you could sit there and leverage it against one crash, but it's not a reliable system. So you're spending a lot of time in maintaining it. So you've got to look at those different things. Knowledge gap is something that we worry about in terms of new technology being deployed in our district. If our staff, if there's not sufficient training to get them up to speed and make sure that they can maintain the equipment, well, we can put an asset out there, gather information, but then it's constantly breaking and it's taking time to repair it. And so not to say we don't implement it, but we need to think about it kind of holistically from those different things. Liability, right? If we roll out a technology in reference to it, one of the examples here is in terms of vehicle to infrastructure technology. I love technology. I love the shiny. I like the idea of getting that information out there. But here's the thing. What happens when those systems don't interact well and that information doesn't get out there? There's a liability associated with that. You know, our district is leaning more so allowing research to continue to look in the V2I, but our focus is going to be on making sure that our detection systems for our traffic signals are operating correctly, the most state of the art. One of the things I'm going to mention here in a minute is red extension. There's other things that we can do, and hoping that vehicle manufacturers will continue to advance their technologies and improve. One of the things I drove my personal vehicle here, right, instead of a state vehicle, because I have more safety features on my personal vehicle than we do in our state vehicles. And so, those are some of the things that when you sit there and you think about that it needs to be considered. So let's see. So here's an example of video detection. One of the things is you'll see this graphic at the bottom. It's developed by FHWA when TxSTIC was being pushed out. And one of the things that's noted on here is it shows like theoretically TxSTIC can help with 60% of trying to help mitigate congestion. It shows that 40% of the bottlenecks. I would suggest that even bottlenecks can be addressed through TxSTIC, right? Through TxSTIC, what you're going to get, you're going to find out where the bottlenecks are. And while you may not be able to adjust those bottlenecks in terms of the technology, that information that you've identified where the bottlenecks are, we can then use that in the planning phase to actually develop the next set of plans, the next construction project to help mitigate it. So here's the Bryan district and 10 counties. You can see the mileage there. When you consider everything, one of the things I'm going to get to on the next slide, but I'm going to go ahead and jump to it now. We're kind of a hub, right? We're not centrally in Texas, but we're kind of a hub. So keep that in mind as I move forward with this. But one of the things that when we sit here and go through and we talk about the use of technology, our focus has been on getting 100% signal connectivity, which we have. Red extension is something that recently we've added for high-speed facilities. We've done it at one location. We're seeing a lot of benefit. I'll talk about in a second. And we're looking at implementing it further. Extending our DMS coverage and our camera coverage is another thing that we're looking at doing. Work zone ITS is something we've been implementing and continue to plan to do so. Speed zone trailers and even traffic responsive beacons, which I have an example of that too. But as we think about safety design, in reference to everything we do starts with safety and design, whether it be the geometrics or technology. But on the technology side, one of the things we have to think about is we need to think about the technology itself and the maintenance associated with it. And so where that comes into, we're in our district, we're trying to deploy technology. We see its benefit. We see it as a way to kind of almost in some cases, it's something that's a part of the process. In some cases, it might be stopgap. And I'm going to use an example as kind of a stopgap or planning for a bigger project. But we are going to deploy technology that we feel has been vetted. Right? It's been vetted by R&D. It's been vetted by field experience. But it also has to be something reliable. If our maintenance staff can't maintain it, then that's going to be an issue. So here's some examples of how we have 100% connectivity. We're in a few districts that have that to our traffic signals, and we're already seeing benefit from it. It lets us know when all of a sudden a signal is having an issue, so we can go out there and try and be more responsible, which then helps in terms of reliability. A more reliable network reduces congestion, improves safety, so it's a benefit. But one of the other things is that we're hoping out of this, and we were already heading down this path as a district before it was even suggested at the state level. We were looking at doing this because we see this as an opportunity to also gather additional information so we can make more informed decisions, right? Sometimes, we get siloed, unfortunately. And so by getting this information, we can pass it on to the design section, which I didn't give a background on, but so I'm the district design engineer and I was in operations. So now I'm able to relay operational benefits to them in reference to that. And I think we're seeing progress. So here's one of the examples that we've got. So in our district, along US 290, so it's a freight corridor, it's an evacuation corridor. It's running through the small town of Chapel Hill. And the interesting part is the last name in Hill. It is on a hill. And so as you're coming into it, a lot of people don't even recognize they're coming into a town. So we're having a lot of speed-related crashes, signal-related crashes. We've got an actual operational change we're going to do, but I'm going to talk about the technological change that we've applied here. And so looking at this, so this is one of the first places that we've rolled out our red extension. And so we implemented a system called Iteris Clear Guide. And what it allows us to do is that we can take that traffic signal and from the data that's already in it, all the technology is already there. It is a software setup. That's literally all it is. You're paying for them to go and put the extra time in to settle the system up. And what it does is it will detect the likelihood of a vehicle actually running the red light. And so by that, on that main movement, it'll still go red. So if they're still in violation, they can still get ticketed, but it holds the side street to make sure that crossing traffic doesn't come up, it doesn't cross. You can see in this image, so the red triangles indicate every time we did a red extension, we did 85 that day. The critical thing in references of those, not a single case did we bring up a green on the side street until that last vehicle cleared. And so it's a significant safety improvement. So that's one of the things we're doing. The other thing you'll see in here in the top and kind of in the middle of the picture, we also added a beacon. That beacon is actually, it was running 24/7 before, so it's in advance of it. You're coming around this vertical curve, you're coming up on a hill, you're coming around a corner, and you can't see the city yet. So we've got this beacon sitting there that was just running all the time. Says, hey, there's a signal head. You don't know how far away because you can't see it. So what we've done now is we've actually tied it to the signal, so it only operates when that signal is on the approach, is either in the yellow or red phase. So when you're coming around that corner, it's only flashing when you need to be prepared to stop. Otherwise, it's off. And so we're hoping to improve driver compliance. So these are some of the technologies we're doing. And that's really intersection related. So what I'm pulling up here that I referenced earlier is our Bryan district is kind of like a hub. There's 30 million people in Texas, and out of 30 million, 70% of the population is on our border. And so on the image on right, yeah, all right, you're right. Yeah. The image on the right shows you those connections. So you'll see the big cities making those connections. And so whether it be for commerce, whether it be for vacation, whether it be for getting to a meeting, we have a lot of traffic that is passing through our district. So one of the things that we're looking to not only impact our local, 500,000 people, we're also looking positive impact for the state by rolling out dynamic message signs. And one of the other things we're looking at doing more works on ITS along those corridors. And so one of the things that we see about it is we put up our safety messages across the state. If we can have more dynamic message signs to get the safety messages out to the public, then we see that as a benefit. Plus, it's another opportunity that we actually have some type of traffic related issue. We might be able to relay it to the public and have them reroute to hopefully reduce secondary crashes. So those are some of the things that we're looking at doing in the district as well. So kind of in conclusion, in reference to our approach has been on reducing conflicts. We do a conflict analysis. We're doing exposure analysis is another way to look at it. So we focused on technology. I'd say innovation for our district isn't just about the technology, it's also about the geometrics. We're starting to deploy more and more innovative intersection design, which is the fancy go word now, in terms of whether it's roundabouts or arc cuts or DDIs. And so we're doing that in conjunction. So if we can reduce either the conflict or their exposure as a result of it, it's going to improve safety. And then when we can't do anything further than that, or to enhance that, to improve the safety and operations, that's when we're deploying technology to further support that from our district perspective. But one of the things I want to click on here in particular is maintenance. So we've really rolled it out. If we don't feel like the technology may be coming a long way, but we don't know that's reliable yet. If we don't know from the standpoint that the training is there, so our staff can be able to be responsive and provide the product that we need. In reference to that, we're going to hold off on that from that standpoint. And I will say we're a very engaging district. We reach out to our vendors all the time, trying to assess where technology is. So it's one of the things that I will say we're not opposed to trying out something that's new, but if we're going to do a massive deployment, it's not going to be until it's reliable. And so I want to close with, I guess y'all can't see it, but when we think about November 2000 in reference to last deathless day in Texas, right? That's one of the things we think about. And I've got two pictures here. One picture is actually one of our signal crews at the actual intersection that I referenced earlier in terms of the red extension. And whether it's in what we do day to day in terms of our staff and thinking about them, or thinking about family that we have at home, we need to apply that in everything we do. And so that's one of the things we're doing when we're looking at this ITS deployment. What's going to benefit our district the most? So questions? Go ahead.
On the red light extension, did you guys also look at, whether or not the person ran the red light, or was that just a given as a part of it?
So we did. So you can't see it on there, unfortunately, right? The graphic, I have to blow it up for you. But it does show whether or not they actually ran the red light. There were 3 levels. I guess I can back up to it. When you look at it, so what you see is the bar on the bottom, that's the end of the yellow phase right here. And so this is the end of the yellow, and then this is the end of the red. So this is the red extension that we did, that we held it for. So if you see a vehicle like this one right there, that vehicle clearly ran the red light. And so, but you can see the extension associated with it. Well, I guess it's not really showing. Here's the extension for that one. So I guess maybe we did this one. Gotta love that. So I thought I looked at each one of them, and I don't know if they're lining up perfectly, because it could be from this angle that this is the red extension for that one. I'm not sure. But anyway, the circular dot is the vehicle that ran the red light. And then the triangle is the red extension itself. And I think they line up. On my screen here, they line up, but that angle, it didn't look like it did. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, works on ITS, what are the ITS things that you guys?
So the primary focus our district has been on works on ITS is the queue detection and trying to put the dynamic message board sign out, letting people know. I will tell you from personal experience, I try and apply that to everything I do. When I get out there and I'm driving along, and especially I-45 is a great example. When all of a sudden you see this congestion, is it because there's an 18-wheeler that's rolled over and all the lanes are shut down? Or is it a momentary delay because of construction? And having that queue detection system, I think, is really going to be a benefit. It's interesting. We did our 4-year safety plan discussion, and that 4-year safety plan discussion, we talked about the works on ITS that we rolled out. And the interesting thing that I bring up on that is how proactive we are in terms of trying to look at a district, not only in terms of works on ITS, but also in terms of when things go sideways. So we had a case on I-45 where we rolled out this new work zone. We had the works on ITS in place. Fatality happened. So we looked at it, what happened in reference to it. All the signs were right. Hey, let's go ahead and push the queue detection out a little bit further. And the fatality happens. We go through and we look at it. We went through a bunch of different iterative steps in reference to it. And I think the works on ITS was helping, but ultimately just because we believe just because of the amount of traffic and the type of traffic that we have on I-45, it was just better for the operations we were doing to move to night operations. Once we moved to night operations, we haven't had a single fatality since then. And on top of that, we had another similar related project that came on, I think it was 6 months later, and so far monitoring it, no nighttime, no fatalities related to it for that same case. But that's the primary one that we're using in that case. We're part of the I-45 Innovative Corridor study, which we've brought on a consultant to kind of give us some advice on things we might try there. We're thinking about stuff related to intersections for signals, obviously. And then what can we do in terms of the work zone related stuff? I think I mentioned earlier, no, I didn't. It's in my notes, roadside units. So at one point we were looking at roadside units about every mile to 2 mile, and it just wasn't going to be something that we were seeing that was really going to give us something actionable to do for the public. And so we chose not to roll it out. But where I think we might end up doing it is on the works on ITS. Because I think from that standpoint, if you have that concentrated bit of information where you could pull the vehicular data off of it, it might be able to give us some information in terms of what type of traffic queuing congestion we might be having. So that may be something we're looking at. So does that answer your question? Yes.
So is this the only intersection that you're using the red extension?
So far it is.
Okay, are y'all planning to extend it to other problematic ones, or you're still gathering data? Or?
So 100% we're gonna implement it. Unfortunately, all of our maintenance budget to pay for the additional upgrades. And again, this is software. We have the technology. That's the frustrating part. We have the technology in place, but it's really more of a software upgrade. We'll work with a vendor. So we're hoping, I'm hoping to bring at least 3 more intersections on by fall, but we don't have a deadline yet. Basically, when the new maintenance budget rolls around, we'll reassess. But yes, that's something. It is also something in my role as district design engineer, I'm looking at putting into all of our plans moving forward. So
then, Jeff, I guess that Caitlin kind of led into my question. Do you know if any of the other 24 districts are also looking at this type of ring zone extension?
So I'm confident they are, but I don't know. And I think that again goes back to the conversation. Are you, example, yeah, I've got a feeling that we're not the only district that's doing it from that standpoint, but I don't know how many districts are using it. And to your point, I think the more important question is, have we started capturing some of that data in order to say, hey, these are the type of reduction in crashes that we're seeing? Because that's really, at the end of the day, when we're trying to make that informed decision, the B2C ratio, that's part of it. And I really think it's going to be an improvement.
Okay, I have a second question. So I haven't sat in on the 4-year plans this year. But is there an ITS component that's built into the 4-year plan, or do you all just add a component on your ITS to it?
So Ashley Hill, she wanted to be here. She's our operations director. She could tell you more in reference to that. I will say, I don't remember there being a specific request for that being in our plan, but it's something we've already implemented. Yeah.
So I'm familiar with the funding formula. So if you look at the emergency funding formula, it's a bunch of stuff, right? What inventory, but there is 90.
Okay.
And depending on metro, rural, urban, there's a bunch of factors in that. It's very small.
Yeah, and that sounds about right. But it is something that we're actively pursuing because we do see that as one of the added benefits. We're just trying to be careful in terms of deployment, because the other thing is you bring on additional ITS infrastructure. It's something you have to maintain. And so we want to make sure we're implementing it where we need it first. And so.
That would be my question. How do you scale it? I mean, it's all performing. When you have to have a skill set and then you bring the signal to do that, or you can do the service and performance.
Well, and I think the way that we're probably going to pursue it is, so with ITERIS's system, the way that it's set up, once we initiate that effort where it's set up, there's an easy monitoring component where, matter of fact, it was interesting. We pulled it up after we brought it online, and all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, we're missing half the data. They're like, yeah, your sensor's down. And so, the fact that that's just one more tool that helps us to identify, and the signal was operating fine. We weren't getting complaints about it per se from the public, but then we went to a public meeting and they're like, yeah, people are, we're having issues with it. And we look at it and it basically confirmed in terms of the sensor being down. So, but there's part of it goes back to programming. So I will say in our particular issue, our staff do not have the capability yet to do that program themselves. It is something that it's not necessarily that has to be unlocked by ITERIS or some other vendors. There's other vendors with products that are out there. It's about a configuration. And so there's, that advanced configuration training, if there was something like that, that would be a real benefit. And I know ITERIS is more than willing. They've come to our district several times. It's just, we've got a lot of rotation. I can't speak for other districts, but we've got a lot of rotation in staff. You might have someone for, I don't know, if we probably looked at numbers in our district, I would say we're probably averaging a signal tech 3 years. We're just not able to retain them. They're either getting picked up by industry or go to another district or something to that effect. It's been tough. So
They don't have a built-in alert though, like the sensor went down.
no, you can set it up. You definitely can set it up. And that was one of the things that actually surprised me when I came from research, right? I love the shiny, I love technology. And when I came from research, I remember I went out in the field one time and we would take a DVR and we plug it in, we pull the video detection from it, and I go back and do manual counts. And I'm sitting there going, there's got to be an easier way to do it. And so then I reached out to the manufacturer and they're like, yeah, you just don't have it set up. And I was like, what? I was like, yeah, y'all don't have it set up anywhere in your district. We've been talking about it forever. And so now we've got that set up in our contract at the outset when they do turn on, that they're going to at least set up our count zones. And that's another thing that's a benefit to the state. It's I'm on a data team, and well, that's one of the things I've been suggesting to the data team. You've got big data, Replica, and other agencies, groups like that are trying to provide turning movement data. And my comment to them is, hey, I'm sure we're not the only district that has this set up, that has this turning movement data that we could then give to you, and you could use that to refine your model and improve it. And then the state can benefit from it. So, I mean, it's about getting everybody in the same room and having a conversation about what we can do to work together. So.
You said your cameras, I think you said they're all connected, is that right?
Yes, as long as the cellular network works.
ask if the cellular.
It is cellular. So is there, so we have a portion of fiber in our district. And as I left I still work closely with Ashley. My recommendation has been to her, honestly, we do everything over cellular with regard to that. We don't have the expertise in our district to do fiber repair. Now Division can help us, through the, Division crews to come out there and help. They've helped us before, but we don't currently have it in-house. There is a contract that Austin district has that the Bryan district can utilize, but then you've got a period of time that your system's going to be down. Versus in the case of cellular network, the importance of Verizon or AT&T to keep your cellular network up typically puts us in a good position where it'll only be down a shorter period of time than if it was over fiber. So not to say that we won't still do fiber in the district, but right now, based upon resources, it just makes the most sense. So everything's over cellular. Anything else? All right, appreciate everybody. I won't back out this time. There we go.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Miles. Next, we have Mr. Darren Anderson, Director of Strategy and Innovation. He's going to provide updates for our STIC program.
I don't have pretty slides. So I'll talk a few things and I'm happy to take questions, things I didn't remember or whatever. Most recently, we held what we call an Innovation Invitational last week here in Austin at the Sheridan with the Innovation Alliance members, which now comprise 10 regional teams, city or larger regional teams. We added Waco, we added Midland, Odessa, and the Corpus Christi folks kind of centralized on themselves this time. They call themselves Coastal Region the last time we got them in, but they all have been working on ideas that they want to pursue for grants or just for innovation zone projects in their regions, and they're very varied. Everything from electric vertical takeoff and landing type of operations to micro mobility shuttle type things, bike ped upgrades, and many others. And I believe they just sent out the link. And they've been posted on the web page for the Alliance, and so we can share that with all the STIC members. So if you want to see what a given region, and it's representative basically of most all of our major cities in the state. I don't think we've got a group from Amarillo, Lubbock area yet, but we're working on that. But pretty much everywhere else we have, and certainly our 5 metros and El Paso. And we even had, I think it was Laredo or was somebody from the Valley area, south of Brownsville. I can't remember. That was a surprise. So we've actually extended down there as well. And they're working in those, and we had effectively a Shark Tank exercise for them where they got up and pitched their ideas. And we had experts from industry and from federal highways and others that had been experiencing different initiatives like smart cities, and they gave them feedback on what would make their grant proposals more effective and how to refine them. And it's typical, especially if you're new, and a lot of the people that have been in these teams changed out, just like we just talked about with traffic. So some of them were new to the game, and so it was very helpful for them. And then we also had several breakouts on electrification and on data, connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles and things like that. And so that allowed them to further examine those different technologies and how those might play in some of the ideas that they want to do for these innovation zones. We'll get back with them in September and have them represent their ideas. And we're going to actually, through our federal affairs folks, enable some of the top selectees to help them develop their actual proposals and further their effort and get them ready for the next round of grants. There's been, that with the new federal infrastructure bill, there's several grants, and they seem continuous now. And so we're trying to help them as well as ourselves on prepping for those and submitting. And really, in many cases for them, it's almost more important than it is for Texas. I mean, we're wealthy and thankfully blessed in terms of the resources we get in Texas. But at the city level, it's a little more challenging at times. So, we're helping them to find the opportunities to make access to those. Another big announcement was Kodiak, which is an autonomous freight company, announced last week that through working with DPS over the last few years, actually, and it's not just been Kodiak, the other AV freight developers in the state have been involved in what they call the Commercial Vehicle Safety Association. They've now established a set of standards for inspecting or pre-inspecting a AV freight truck itself, the cab itself, and in the trailer prior to it leaving the yard, and then they don't have to go through weigh-in motion stations and stop. They can effectively bypass those. And so that will now, in the coming months, become a national standard more than likely. And as they begin to really grow their industry, it'll be used throughout the state. And so it was the first big announcement that they finally agreed and gotten through the hurdles of all the tests and things that they wanted to do and satisfy DPS. So that was a big deal, and really an effective example of the work at the state level that we've been doing with the industry on advancing those. Other news, if you haven't heard, Cruise is operating here in Austin now, passenger vehicle service, and Waymo is just about ready to do it. And VW announced their intentions to first test in America in Austin in the next coming years. They've got a little bit of ways to go. That was just an announcement. They're not here on the ground. But Cruise is already operating with no driver. Been a few incidents in the last couple of days, so hopefully that will, be a problem. And it's interesting because we have that at the same time in state, and they're talking, both Waymo and Cruise say that they're going to Houston and Dallas next. The same time we've got autonomous freight companies operating on 45, 35, I-20 and I-30 corridor in Dallas as well, as a beginning. And we're certainly the lead state for that development in the nation. And then we have personal delivery devices in just about every town of any size now, of some sort, and focus on college campuses or local delivery and things like that. And we're working through our Connected Autonomous Vehicle Task Force to put that data out on a map that's very much like our GIS solution that we use for statewide planning map, and that's in the works. We're also working, we've been working with the lead engineers in the department on speaking about ITS and not having to put out more the idea of using our already existing HCRS handheld software that in a construction zone, you can upload information about that construction zone, start point, end point, the lane that it's blocking, things like that. Upload that up and direct into Drive Texas, and then furthering that to mapping applications of various types across the state, across anywhere. So you name it, Google, Waze, Apple, and the work has begun on making the modifications that are necessary to do that. We had looked at contracting it, but the decision after looking at what the offerings were to just upgrade what we have in-house and make that happen. And I really think that's it's not just about long-term construction zones, but then as we get the thing hardened and the solution viable, you can see that being applied to temporary construction zones where they're putting cones out. And it's not just about informing the public, it's about protecting the workers in the construction zone. And I think that's really what's of great value to the department, as well as to our partners that we contracted to do construction. And it can also be a traffic incident management tool again, with DPS and local police, they could input that information on the scene if they're the first ones there, or we could do it from a traffic management center and get that more proliferated out to any user that has those applications. And we're not just talking about passenger vehicle. This is drive-wise in freight vehicles and where they have pre-pass and potentially other applications such as ones that come from the cloud. So it's going to be a year probably, I would guess, but I mean, a lot of great work going on relative to that. I-45 corridor, innovation corridor was mentioned. We learned in the last 2 weeks that Federal Highways has a research requirement on the previous infrastructure bill that they just didn't. Apparently, they didn't know what, it was like budget dust, and they found it, and they're like, "Oh, we got to execute this." And so they have a similar project for I-45 where they were, or not for I-35, where they're supposed to look at the entirety of I-35, but starting with Texas from Mexico to Oklahoma. Same idea. What are all the innovative things that would advance these corridors from a federal highways perspective, and what should be the standards and so forth. So we're going to work hand in glove with them on both of those corridors now, and so that we get to a common standard of what's the next leap, and then from there tie in the other highways as well. And I mentioned that the innovation, we learned a lot of other activities are happening relative to corridors in the cities that are, tied into those major arteries. So we'll seek to bring that into that discussion as a part of that. Am I missing anything, Eric? Any good ones? Ben, is on board now. You may not have met him yet. He's now responsible for the section that's going to pull together our portfolio of, if you will, of different types of innovative projects, everything from everyday counts to the innovative projects that we get from the districts and divisions, external ones from other states, NCHRP, pool fund studies, that whole list, and then begin to work with the engineers of the department on, well, what do they want to prioritize? What are the next ones? If we were to scale these and standardize and make them common across TxSTIC, what are the ones you want to do first? And then let's go about getting those resourced and enabled. And so that's his baby to bring to bear. No pressure. Start to get it done tomorrow. There was a Transportation Research Board autonomous ARTS. I can't remember what ARTS stands for. Meeting in California, but it's focused on autonomous vehicles. And during that discussion, John Corbin, who's been at Federal Highways for several years at least, and has worked on all the autonomous vehicle guidance since the very first one. He's also the one that led the recently released highway automation guidance, ConOps, if you will, and that was the beginnings of guidelines for, well, if you haven't done an autonomous deployment in your state, here are the different types of major use cases and things you want to think about as you begin to work with the industry. He's now charged with coming out with a digital infrastructure strategy for the state. So what's the future of connected vehicle technologies? But not just that, what are all the sensors that may not be on a highway system now that we would like to see proliferated across the US? And as a part of the discussion at TRB Arts, we said, well, look, John, we're doing what you're talking about planning. We're getting ready to do these things. And so we'd like to have a voice in setting the course for the country. And so he is working now to come out here in late September or early October and meet with us and bring some other state DOTs and bring in a bunch of TxSTIC members and begin to map out what that looks like. And so that's going to be a pretty big to do, I think, for us. And really gives us the opportunity as a state to drive, what everyone else is doing. And I think we should. I think we, you know, there are some other states that have had deployments, but none of them, I think, have been looking at this more holistically beyond RSUs. And we've had, you know, a vision of, well, it doesn't stop there. It could be a number of other ways to make that happen. So those are my big updates. I think, James, you may be the only outside agency here today. Do you have anything you want to talk about? Does anybody have some idea or thing that they've been working on that they want to express? Online, anybody got any new innovative ideas that you want to speak up about? I'm sorry?
Got DPS on one. David.
David from DPS is on.
That's it, right.
Yes, I am.
Do you have any updates you want to share?
No, I don't really have anything new. It's just the same stuff. We're just continuing. I think the end of next month, we'll have the rollout of our new in-car and CAD system done, which is a big milestone for us, moving us into current technology when it comes to those platforms. And then we just continue leveraging our the drones in our crash and other tactical areas. So, but that's really about it.
Have you guys experienced? Yeah, I know that the drone thing, TxSTIC ponied up some resources to buy about 20 to 30 drones a couple of years ago. Have you guys added to that?
I don't know that we've added since then. I think we have upgraded some stuff, replaced some older stuff, but we've kind of got to a point where we've got, I had a conversation on this not too long ago, but we've gotten to the point where we've got enough drones to cover what we need. And we really can't, we don't have the capacity to, because of all of the training and the recertification and stuff like that you have to maintain to really have any more drone operators. So I think we're kind of at a threshold, at least at this point.
And do you still have to tether those drones, right? Since Federal Highways hasn't given any non-line of sight stuff, right?
Yes, we're still doing all that. Yes.
Okay. And I guess I stole your thunder on Kodiak.
No problem at all.
All right. Does anybody have any questions of me? Is there some activity you want to know about that I might not have hit on? No. Yes, sir.
I guess one of the things, so this is the safety perspective, and I've mentioned this in a couple of different meetings associated with innovations. I know there's always a concern over privacy. A lot of cars, right, they have either an emergency button, or you have cell phones that have emergency buttons in the case of a crash and whatnot. And one of the things we focused on in terms of, or we thought about, so now focused on, we talk about safety, the different things we can do design wise, right? TxSTIC can do, what can I do? I can rumble strips in, I can put cable barrier in, I can make the shoulder wider and things. Those are things I physically can do. Is there the same effort in reference to reaching out to motor industry, different things that they can do on their side? You know, 50%, more than 50% of our crashes in our district are related to unrestrained, fatalities related to unrestrained motorists. Unless TxSTIC is going to be at the door of every motorist, put the seatbelt on, I can't fix that. Right now, various different systems have got it, you plug it in, it's going to give you a warning, a ding, 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 they make it harder for you to pull that fuse or whatever in order to override that. But in terms of that's the aspect of trying to change motor vehicle operation. One thing I'm advocating for is there enough effort by industry in terms of helping first responders to respond quicker, right? We can try and do what we can from the design side on roadway design. Manufacturers can work on the vehicle side, but is there something happening that's going to help those first responders, DPS and others, to get to the scene quicker? And on top of that, I'd even advocate, I've made a suggestion that TTI, you know, every time they crash a vehicle or anytime the state pays or feds pay for somebody to crash a vehicle and test it, to put in devices from cellular or onboard systems that can then spit out a message that says, you had 3 occupants in the vehicle, 2 of them were unrestrained, and it was and based upon the impact, you need to have 3 ambulances on scene type thing. So that not only are they quicker to respond, but also respond to the right assets, because that's the other thing. First responders are sitting there, I have 2 simultaneous calls. I don't know, this was on a high-speed facility and it was on a low-speed. Let's send out staff to high-speed. Oh, wait a minute, minor fender bender versus the one that's a low-speed facility is right angle crash, and all the occupants were unrestrained. And so they sent the resources to the wrong spot. Type thing. Is there any effort on that side of it to look at improving things in terms of trying to reduce crash severity?
So I'll answer for you.
Okay.
That's okay.
Can they hear you? They can hear you, right?
Can they hear me?
Okay,
Okay.
that's what I thought.
So this is Erica Kemp, and I'm the director of the strategic planning division. So two comments to respond. One is we are starting right now to look at what the future statewide traffic management center of the future looks like. And that would include virtual option versus in-person option. And we've hired a consultant, they'll be on board hopefully in the next 30 days to start that effort. Help us define what that program looks like, tell us the length of time it's going to take to implement it, how much it will cost, right? But it won't happen overnight, right? It's going to be something that we have to build over time. And that will be in conjunction with the district, who will have a lot of input on what that looks like. So again, it's not a strategic planning division program, it is us leading the effort statewide. Then the second piece is the simple answer following a former boss, Brian Bryant, who likes the simple answers. Yes, people are looking at that.
That works.
The kind of the vision, and Mike Ariano was part of these conversations that we had, and we had a small group of people talking about what would help traffic management center, what would help people, and it's exactly that. And so the use of artificial intelligence and data coming in from the cars could tell us 3 airbags deployed, meaning there are 3 people physically in the car. We know we should send 3 ambulances just in case and have those people on the way. And it would be better to have ambulances on the way in a more timely fashion to get to those people. And if they aren't needed there, but at least the right people were sent. You know, if you need fire, all sorts of different things. We could use drones eventually to get there and tell us what the scene looks like and what we need. And so yes, there's a lot of at this point discussion around how we can help the first responders. And I think as we start working through this traffic management center in the future, that will guide us on steps we can take to getting closer and sending people quicker. And I know Brian District, I was very interested, especially in rural highways, how we respond to rural highways versus metro highways. And so that's
I'll add 2 things to that. So as much as they share it, because they don't always share, the AV development is also informing that, right? And I mean, frankly, your ADAS systems on your car now, I mean, and you can see what the state of the art is. That's why I love Erica mentioned the airbags, because that's probably the more accurate meaning, at least it's kind of the last step in an event, so it's probably the most likely accurate. But if you're driving your car and you've got a drowsiness sensor, well, you're not always drowsy. You just might not have moved your hands in 30 minutes while you're driving long distance. Or when you get the little signal that the passenger side airbag, and you might have put a backpack or something there, and so it's not always spot on whether or not somebody's sitting there. Now you can add a bunch of cameras and they are looking at that, at least for the driver to make sure driver attention is a part of it. So those things could all combine and improve that situational awareness. The other part of it I think is important is if that car doesn't have some kind of satellite connection, they rely on the cellular networks as well. So it's important to us to remember that, a part of ITS and a part of improving that is how well do we have a communications network that would both help drones get to the scene as well as receive information from that scene, regardless if you have any RSUs on the road. There's got to be some communications mean for it to transmit that information, and I don't think they use RF to do that. But that, when we think about it, that's what we're working on too.
There's enough data density here that makes them more accurate than people on the internet and static. And so you still need visual verification of every data decision that use incident. And so we're looking at equipping our hero truck or replacing them like the cover to have that kind of thing. Because if your camera's limited sight on one side, one thing we discovered in the launch platform was it was detecting more incidents than our visual human eyes and cameras could because it was stuff to do. And so the idea, so what we're going to do is do a regional approach, so in a rural area or an MPO in a rural area, actually repurposing the cameras like that. And then having a lot of data kind of drive the metro.
We made that suggestion. You should do that.
Well, you can come on.
Make that suggestion again. And then, like I said, you'll look at it from a statewide perspective.
Eric will take that suggestion and make it.
And people, one other one that I just thought of, we've had a lot of people ask us about AI recently. Thanks, Michael. We are working toward developing an AI strategy for the department, meaning what are all the use cases, and we'll be asking the field too, but we're bringing a team in to kind of list out all the use cases. We've been consuming endless emails about it from vendors, and we could do this and we could do that, so we keep writing those down. But we're going to come out and we're going to work with the rest of the department on, well, what does that look like? What are the things we might want to use it for? How would it enhance our, and it's everything from traffic operations to finance to, you name it. There's a lot of use cases. And with the end state vision of having a strategic direction on exactly how do we want to approach this and be careful, and yes, considerations of, what date, how do you, much like you have certain IT clouds that are government approved and used, the same thing as it relates to AI. There are ways where it can be behind firewalls and you can still use the power of it without releasing all your internal data to the world that then they could manipulate and not understand correctly. So that's underway, and next 6 months to a year, hopefully we'll have that kind of hardened up. And but as we go, we're talking about what are the actual use cases and why would we want to do those. And we did, there was a policy put out, if you didn't see it, that said, hey, hold your horses on just jumping on ChatGPT and dumping TxSTIC data in it, because you've just given it away. And it's not so much, it's not like our data is secret sauce, but it's kind of like we talk about metrics, right? If you take all the data that we use to build a given metric and you just release that without any explanation as to what that data represents, that can be completely interpreted incorrectly. And then people get all excited because they're like, oh, from this data, this is what I'm seeing. Well, no, because you don't understand what you just looked at. And so we've got to be smart about that and not make that readily available. And that's way before we worry about PII, which is, personally identifiable information. We know not to share that. I hope we all know that. But those little things, like, those are the ones that are concerning if we're not careful about it. All right, Ben, I talked enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. And with that, Mr. Anderson has covered updates as well as the council roundtable. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Erica Kim.
All right, thank you, Ben. So I have just two things to cover before us, and then I think I close us out, right? Am I supposed to do something? There we go. All right. So Darren already introduced Benjamin King, who joined my team in the strategic planning division. We have now an innovation section. And so Ben is not an island. He does have 6 people who are working with him, of which 4 are here with us. So we have Caitlin Kasberg, who's been on the team for quite some time, Brianna Mason, who is here as well, and then 2 new members to our team, Shelley Pridgeton, who is not new to the STIC. And so, as you can imagine, with Shelley coming over to strategic planning, the STIC and EDC will also be transitioning from RTI over to strategic planning, which that was planned before we actually knew Shelley was coming. So it all worked out very well. But we also have a new member to the innovations team and also to TxSTIC, Bharathi Thangu, who is here with us, just joined us this week. We have 2 other members who are not here today, but some of you may know Deb Morris, who is in Transportation Programs Division. She will be coming over to strategic planning next week on the 1st. And then we have Ben Aniacho, who has been a staple in the strategic planning division for quite some time. So Benjamin King does have people to help him do all the things that Darren just promised you he was going to get done. And that whole team is going to be great at making all of that happen. And we're very excited because a lot of what this team is doing is actually informing people of what TxDOT has already been doing. It's not that we're inventing new innovations. We're letting people know what we've been doing, but then also this opportunity to scale the innovations across the state. There's lots of pilots, like a lot of great things going on in the Bryan district. And what's going on in the Bryan district, if it's good for Bryan, it's good for 24 other districts. And we need to start sharing that more. But we also then do bring together our external partners, whether they're local governments, other agencies such as the MPOs, the COGs, the RMAs, and our industry partners, right, who help us with innovation consultants or our technology leaders. So quite a large group of stakeholders for us to bring together and continue to move innovation forward for Texas and then help influence that across the country. So with those comments, I do want to thank everyone who has helped us to make this happen today at the STIC. So Cassandra and Charnette and the team from UT Arlington, along with our speakers, Douglas, Trinette, Ray, Kenneth, and Jeff. So let's all give them one more round of applause. And thank you. And I didn't write down when our next STIC meeting is. Do we have a date? Okay, the next STIC meeting, the date is to be determined. And one of our goals is to increase participation. So please come and bring a friend. Right. With that, I'm going to let you all enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thank you.